You may have seen them there on the quiet waters of a lake near Port Alberni. Two huge Martin Mars moored in the middle of the lake. Their brilliant red and white paint jobs reflected in the glassy water. Known as the gentle giants of Sprout Lake, they sometimes seem to float in the mist or they disappear into the rain and fog, but all summer they are there. Unless there's a forest fire, then they're busy. Because fighting forest fires is what the forest industry's flying tankers do, and they do it very well. Working in tandem, the two Mars can deliver over 7,000 US gallons every 7 minutes. That's 30 tons of water per drop drenching a fire. The water is scooped from a nearby lake or the ocean and flown to the fire where it is dropped exactly where the fire boss needs it. If he specifies foam, the concentrate will be added during the flight. Foam clings to the trees and has a dramatic effect in reducing heat and smothering flames. A typical drop covers 4 acres. The water bombers are owned and operated by a company formed by an alliance of 3 large forest companies with holdings on Vancouver Island and the adjacent mainland of British Columbia. Called Forest Industries Flying Tankers Limited, the company mission is to protect the forests of the stakeholders. The broader mandate is to fight forest fires whenever they are called upon to do so. And the main weapons in the fight are the 2 water bombers. Philippine Mars and Hawaii Mars, the largest operational flying boats ever built. Originally owned by the U.S. Navy, the Mars flew for many years as troop carriers. They were brought to their new home and stripped to the bare essentials. Water tanks were fitted and scoops added to pick up water as the aircraft skims the surface. Later, tanks were added to carry foam concentrate, which can be mixed with the water during the flight to the drop site. With a wingspan of 200 feet and 4 huge piston engines, the aircraft have an endurance of 6 hours or longer if required. With the Olympic Peninsula only 35 minutes away, it allows them to reach and effectively fight fires south into the Olympic Peninsula of Washington State, as far inland as the Okanagan Valley, and north to the Queen Charlottes. Their piston engines give them the ability to fly low and slow, which is ideal for firefighting. A large and essential part of the operation is the maintenance facilities attached to the base. The aircraft were purchased with a full inventory of spare parts. Spare engines were purchased and are stored in sealed containers. The design engineering drawings were also delivered with the aircraft. Whenever possible, spare parts are purchased, but as the years go by, more of the replacements are fabricated in the shops on base. If needed, experts are brought in to consult and work on specialized components. Training is ongoing for the highly skilled engineers who work on the craft. They also fly in them as crew members. Safety of aircraft and personnel is paramount. Maintenance is a daily constant, which is true of any working aircraft. There's always something to do in a job that is part engineering and part rebuilding. Flying Tankers also operates a fleet of helicopters. They do mule work in the forest, lifting, hauling, seeding, fertilizing, transporting personnel and materials to remote sites. The most important work the helicopters do, though, is fire detection and patrol. During times of fire hazard, the helicopters patrol morning and afternoon, searching for smoke or other evidence of fire. They check all sites of recent forest activity to ensure everything is secure and that nothing is smoldering. In radio contact with the base, it is a simple matter to report any problems they find. Each helicopter is always ready. They carry a water bucket and can dip from any convenient lake or river. They coordinate their efforts with the bombers once they arrive. Positioned at 4 strategic locations on Vancouver Island, Ladysmith, Campbell River, Gold River, and Sprout Lake, the helicopters efficiently patrol a huge territory. Also part of the Flying Tankers fleet is a Grumman Goose. This amphibian is used as a bird dog by the bombers. The bird dog is the first to answer a fire call. The pilot makes contact with the fire boss, finds out what is required, locates the best local water source, and radios the information back to the incoming Mars pilots. All the pilots are experienced in both the Goose and the Mars, so the bird dog pilot knows exactly the capability of the larger aircraft. He leads them in for each drop on the fire and then remains on post to maintain ground contact and plan the next drop while the Mars go to reload. Throughout the summer, the bombers are test flown weekly and all systems are checked to ensure serviceability. Pre-flight checks are meticulous.
The props are yours.
Each man has a workstation and all must be tightly coordinated for a successful flight.
Gentry are in reverse.
A crew consists of captain, first officer, and 2 flight engineers. Pre-flight checks complete, she slips her moorings and the engines roar to life one by one. Out of consideration for the neighbors, the bombers taxi to a remote arm of the lake for takeoff. Gathering speed, the aircraft first lifts to its step and then skimming over the water, reaches liftoff speed. The Martin Mars water bomber soars. The flight engineers operate the engines, constantly monitoring temperatures, pressures, and adjusting speed as required. The Mars operate on the principle of simplicity. No computers, no autopilot, nothing but the essentials to get the job done. This is real flying. On a pickup, the aircraft swoops down onto the water and then, while skimming over the surface, extends 2 6-inch diameter scoops.
Okay, engineer, you have the power. There's the power. And the probe. They're going down.
In 25 seconds, the speed will drive 30 tons of water into the storage tanks. The water bomber gathers speed for takeoff and is soon airborne again. The crews use these airworthiness flights to hone their drop skills, and so, having targeted a convenient rocky outcrop, they fly an approach for a practice drop. The 7,000 gallons the bomber drops will be spread over a 4-acre area. The drenching effect is huge. Whether returning from a mission or a practice run, they quickly settle back into their moorings to become, again, part of the tranquility of Sprout Lake. But all summer, they are fighting ready. In the fall, when the fire season is over, they are hauled up onto the apron at the base. Now begins winter maintenance. Every part of the craft is checked. The engines are carefully inspected. The skin and the frame are checked and repaired. The forest needs these giants up and ready again in the spring.
All day long, these giant Mars water bombers were trying to keep up with fires breaking out all over the province. This fire near Daisy Lake on the road to Whistler started this morning, one of 92 that have broken out in the last couple of days.
A forest fire is a fearsome thing. Raging through the forest with a brisk wind behind it, a fire can engulf acres in a moment, destroying biodiversity, disturbing wildlife habitats, and reducing millions of dollars of harvestable trees to smoking ash in minutes. A tremendous cost, without even taking into account the threat to homes, people, and communities. So, if in your travels you should see a huge red and white aircraft or 2 soaring above you, give a thought to the firefighting work they do. And if you see them quiet and tethered on Sprout Lake, remember that they are ready to spring to life whenever the alarm is sounded.